Now, Hezbollah was hit by a wave of exploding pagers. Let's get you the latest. Amid escalating tensions in the Middle East, thousands of Hezbollah members were injured when the pagers they were using for communication exploded simultaneously across the group's strongholds in Beirut and southern Lebanon. 11 people died, while over 2,700 Hezbollah terrorists suffered injuries in the explosion. Among the dead is Mahdi Ammar, the son of Hezbollah's loyalty to the resistance bloc MP Ali Ammar, and among the wounded is Iran's ambassador to Lebanon. 5 individuals are reported to be in critical condition. Hezbollah blamed Israel for the blasts across Lebanon, saying it will get its fair punishment. A Hezbollah official speaking to Reuters said the detonation of the pagers was the quote-unquote biggest security breach the group had been subjected to in nearly a year of conflict with Israel. Hezbollah, in fact, has increasingly turned to using pagers for communication as it seeks to avoid Israeli surveillance. Now, in recent years, Hezbollah has moved away from smartphones, which they believed can be easily hacked and used to track movements. Israel and the Iran-backed Hezbollah have been engaged in cross-border warfare since the Gaza war erupted last October, in the worst such escalation in years. Now, here's all you need to know about the blast. Take a look.
Security camera footage of a market in Beirut captures this moment on Tuesday. Something explodes, seemingly from inside one person's pocket or bag, and the man falls to the floor, crying in pain. Lebanon's health minister said blasts like these killed at least 8 people and injured more than 2,800 across the country, many of them fighters and medics from the militant Islamist group Hezbollah. The pagers they used to communicate exploded. The pagers began to detonate around 3:45 p.m. local time, and explosions continued for an hour. It was not immediately clear how the devices were detonated. A Hezbollah official speaking on condition of anonymity said the detonation of the pagers was, quote, the biggest security breach the group had been subjected to in nearly a year of war with Israel. The Israeli military declined to comment on Reuters' inquiries about the blasts. Israel and Iran-backed Hezbollah have been engaged in cross-border warfare since the Gaza war erupted last October, the worst escalation in years. Iran's Mehr news agency said the Iranian ambassador to Lebanon, Mojtaba Amani, seen here in July, was injured by one of the pager explosions. Reuters could not immediately confirm the report. A senior Hezbollah source told Reuters the group's leader, Said Hassan Nasrallah, was not harmed. At one hospital, a Reuters reporter saw motorcycles rushing to the emergency room where people with their hands bloodied were screaming in pain. The head of a public hospital in the south of the country told Reuters that around 40 wounded people were being treated at his facility. The wounds included injuries to the face, eyes, and limbs.
So let us take a look at the possible scenarios on how the pager explosions in Lebanon occurs. Now, the devices could have been tampered with. The pagers were tampered with during the transit. A small explosive device could have been planted in them and detonated remotely. Now, the other scenario is that the lithium batteries could have been tampered with, causing them to overheat and explode. In another scenario, the devices could have been hacked and batteries were remotely overcharged, triggering a thermal runaway. Now, thermal runaway leads to sudden release of energy, causing explosion with intense heat and force. Pagers are outdated softwares which can be easily hacked. Software on Hamas pager network corrupted using a virus. The virus was remotely triggered or activated on a pre-programmed timer. Now, these are in fact some of the possible scenarios on how the pager explosion actually took place in fact Lebanon, their Hezbollah viewers was hit by a wave of exploding pagers. Hezbollah has, of course, blamed Israel and has said that, and has in fact vowed to retaliate. Reports are coming in that these pagers used by the Hezbollah were sourced from Taiwan. All these pagers were sourced from the Taiwanese company Gold Apollo. Now, these pagers cost around $200. When the shipment there reached Lebanon from Taiwan, it was on hold for 3 months. During that time, the Hezbollah claims that the Israeli agency tampered with all the pagers. Before the blast there occurred, there was an error message that came on all the pagers. After the error message on the pager, it started vibrating and then the blast took place. However, there the founder of the Taiwanese company Gold Apollo claimed that the communications devices that were exposed to explosions in Lebanon were not manufactured by his company. They were in fact manufactured somewhere in Europe. Hezbollah promised to retaliate against Israel after accusing it of detonating pagers across Lebanon, killing at least 11 people and wounding nearly 3,000 others. Cybersecurity expert Joseph there said that it was surprising that the organization was using pagers in the first place, given Israel's history of detonating devices.
So, it's somewhat surprising that Hezbollah would rely on pagers, knowing that Israel has a history going back decades of being able to detonate electronic devices. Ironically, there were reports in the media not that long ago that Hezbollah essentially broadcast to the world that they were downgrading from cell phones to pagers in order to prevent Israeli intelligence from tracking people using the GPS capabilities. Why they would broadcast something like that to the world, I cannot tell you. Electronic devices such as cell phones and pagers are typically not manufactured in Lebanon or Syria or Iran. They're getting these products, Hezbollah is getting these products from overseas manufacturers. And it is likely that Western entities have the ability to influence the supply chain, to put it mildly. If this was Israel, which presumably it was, it should not be surprising that they have the capability to carry something like this out. The bigger question would be, how did they manage to booby trap all of these pagers?
An Iraqi team called NeoCyber carried out cyber operations targeting the several Israeli websites that spanned across Israel's government and healthcare. More than 25 Israeli websites have been targeted by the group. Now, in fact, this is the latest that we're bringing to all our viewers in connection with the pager explosions in Lebanon. Now, amid escalating tensions in the Middle East, thousands of Hezbollah members there were injured when the pagers they were using for communications exploded simultaneously. So far, 11 people have lost their lives, while over 2,700 Hezbollah terrorists have suffered injuries in the explosion. Now, the Israeli military, in fact, is saying that senior commanders, including Chief of Staff General Herzi Halevi, had held a situational assessment focusing on readiness in both offense and defenses in all arenas without giving details. It said there was no change in the instructions to civilians, but added the public are asked to remain alert and vigilant, and any change in policy will be updated immediately. Militant group Hezbollah promised to retaliate against Israel after accusing it of detonating pagers across Lebanon on Tuesday, killing 11 people and wounding nearly 3,000 others, including fighters and Iran's envoy to Beirut. Hezbollah said Israel would receive its fair punishment for the blasts. The Israeli military, which has been engaged in cross-border fighting with Iran-backed Hezbollah since the start of the Gaza war in October, declined to respond to questions about the detonations. Now, the United States had no involvement in Tuesday's pager blasts in Lebanon, the Pentagon said, as Washington renewed calls for a diplomatic solution to tensions between Israel and Lebanon. Militant group Hezbollah promised to retaliate against Israel after accusing it of detonating pagers across Lebanon, stoking fears of escalation. Air Force Major General Patrick Ryder, a Pentagon spokesperson, told the media when a question was raised on the issue. The U.S. also said that it was looking for a diplomatic solution for the West Asia standoff.
Again, I don't have any details to provide on the reports of the pager blast. I can tell you, to my knowledge, there's no U.S. involvement in this at all. Again, it's something that we're monitoring. And in terms of potential escalation, I go back to what I said earlier in terms of a key focus for this department and the U.S. government writ large is on working with partners in the region, to include Israel, to prevent the conflict between Israel and Hamas from spiraling into a wider conflict. And that includes the tensions along the Israel-Lebanon border. And so we'll continue to strongly advocate for a ceasefire and the release of the hostages, and we'll continue to strongly advocate for a diplomatic resolution to the tensions that we're seeing along the Israel-Lebanon border. Yeah, as far as what it is, again, I just don't have anything to provide. And as far as escalation, broadly speaking, in the Middle East, this is something that we've been paying attention to for more than almost a year now, since Hamas's attack on Israel on October 7. And so we've been very, very focused. The Secretary's been very, very focused on ensuring that that the tensions in the region do not escalate into a wider regional conflict. And as I highlighted at the top, that's something that continues to stay top of mind.
When it comes to the Middle East, that is something that we have spoken to before. We are always obviously concerned about that. This particular incident, I don't want to get into speculate about it or get into hypotheticals about it. When we think about the conflict along the blue line between Israel and Hezbollah, it has gone on for way too long, long enough, and so it is in everyone's interest to resolve it quickly and diplomatically. So we continue to believe that there should be a diplomatic resolution to this, and so I will leave it there. And well, actually, I'll add, this is why the ceasefire negotiation is so important. This is why the hostage deal is so important. This is why the president and his administration has been working around the clock, 24 hours to get that done. We believe the deal would help reduce tensions along the blue line, and that is one of the reasons. We believe diplomatic, obviously, efforts are critical and important at this time. As it relate to that incident, we've seen the reports. I just don't have anything to say beyond that.
Joined us and wondering what exactly has happened. Let me give you a quick recap. Amid escalating tensions in the Middle East, thousands of Hezbollah members were injured when the pagers they were using for communication exploded simultaneously across the group's strongholds in Beirut and southern Lebanon. 11 people, viewers, have lost their lives, while over 2,700 Hezbollah terrorists suffered injuries in the explosion. Now, to in fact discuss this in detail, I'm joined by my colleague Varghese Abraham on the phone line. Varghese, Hezbollah hit by a wave of exploding pagers there. What do we know? What is the, in fact, latest detail that you can share with all our viewers?
Well, right now, what we understand is that the Hezbollah themselves have launched an internal investigation into the matter, and they believe that the pagers that they had sourced out were, in fact, tampered. Now, the irony about the entire thing is that the Hezbollah, trying to avoid detection, had actually downgraded from mobile phones to pagers. So they believe that the Israeli intelligence agencies were trying to, in fact, track them, and therefore, to avoid this kind of detection, they decided to go on pagers. So this was a strategy that they had thought about something like 4 to 5 months ago, especially when the Gaza war was raging at its fullest. And therefore, they implemented it among their followers. But interestingly enough, the same pagers that the Hezbollah thought would, in fact, keep them away from detection was used by what they claim by Israel to target their people. Now, these pager explosions have been reported across Lebanon, and it has resulted in chaos among the Hezbollah ranks as well. 11 people have died, including the son of an MP in Lebanon, and therefore, right now, the tensions are quite high at the border.
Right, Verghese, there's a lot of confusion, as to how this operation was carried out. The possible scenarios, what we have with us is that, the devices could have been tampered with during the transit. But, do go ahead and give us some clarity, if you have any, on how exactly was this operation carried out by Israel.
Well, we don't know whether Israel has carried out this operation in the first place, because these are all accusations that are coming in from Hezbollah saying they have carried out. And Israel has not, in fact, come up and spoken about this as well, though they have taken some kind of measures on it. Hezbollah has been, in fact, pushing in the fact that they were being deliberately targeted with these pager explosions by Israel. And as I said, there was an investigation that was, in fact, carried out by them. And it has been revealed that these pagers were, in fact, brought into Lebanon. Now, though they claim that these pagers were manufactured by the Taiwanese company Gold Apollo, we have information coming in that the owner of Gold Apollo has denied manufacturing these devices and said that these were manufactured somewhere in Europe. In that case, it only becomes murky in the sense that how did these orders from the Hezbollah for these pagers, in fact, go out, and who was the manufacturer or the right manufacturer for them? Was Hezbollah kept in a delusion saying that they were actually sourcing it from Taiwan when it actually came in from some other source already tampered with, and therefore it was kept on hold also. Their shipment was kept on hold for almost 3 months, after which these pages were distributed across the Hezbollah rank and file, including some people in Syria as well as in Iraq. So these blasts have occurred in all these areas as well, and interestingly enough, if the investigations are to be carried out, it will be quite interesting to see how these particular pages that were sourced by Hezbollah were in fact tampered with, whether it was at the area when the shipments were held for 3 months, because that is also the speculation that has been put forward by the Hezbollah, that the shipment which was in fact on hold for 3 months, which they have sourced out, during those 3 months is when the probable tampering of devices took place. But after that, it is also possible that the device came completely manufactured with a particular in a particular manner to carry out these explosions. So there is a whole lot of the thing that has in fact come out on this particular aspect.
Right, Verghese. Now the biggest question, of course, is that, how does this stabilize West Asia?
Well, the big question about stability is that right now the status quo could in fact change, because Hezbollah, after having seen an attack like this across its rank and file, would be pressured in for a response. Now, that is something that Israel has in fact factored in as of now, because what we understand is that there have been meetings that have been happening, and the recent statement coming in from the Israeli PMO's office saying that Netanyahu has cancelled his United Nations General Assembly visit and speech as well. So that shows that the situation is becoming quite tense within Israel. So they are seeing that there could be a response. Hezbollah has in fact said that there will be a fair punishment for what has been carried out. But what is the kind of punishment is yet to be known, because the history of conflict between Hezbollah in southern Lebanon and IDF in northern Israel, well, it has been dragging as much as the Gaza war itself. There have been skirmishes, there have been artillery fires that have been reported, rocket launches also have been reported from the Hezbollah side. So it's been going on, an ongoing battle in northern Israel. So Israel has in fact said that they are ready for offensive and defensive purposes when it comes to the current situation.
Right, Verghese, thank you very much. In fact, I do beg your pardon. What I meant to ask was, how does this destabilize West Asia? Thank you very much, Verghese, for joining us with all of those important insights.